This video contains spoilers from the world and story of Subnautica. Please beware. When it comes to the world of Subnautica, I occasionally like to ask questions that are purely hypothetical in nature, simply because, well, I like the idea of exploring their potential implications. Whether that be something huge living in the void, or what the crash zone used to look like before Aurora's unfortunate arrival. Topics which don't necessarily have a solid answer within the game's lore, and yet, in my opinion, trying to answer them can be a lot of fun. And today, I'll be discussing a question just like that. One that I've seen mentioned in the comments many times over and over, and that is, what if the Aurora landed in the void? I'll be taking information given to us by the game directly, and trying to apply it to this hypothetical scenario, so that we can get at least somewhat of an idea of what the game would have looked like if the pilot decided not to aim for shallow water. So, without any further ado, grab your PDA, get ready for some theorizing, and let's go. Now, to first give this video some structure, here are three main questions I'll be trying to answer in regards to the Aurora swimming through the void. Number 1, how would this affect Ryley's survival? Number 2, how would this affect the rest of the crew? And number 3, how would this affect events in Below Zero? Also, before we start, just so we're all on the same level, I'm going to be presuming that the Aurora crashes into the void, from which point onwards, it is no longer accessible. I mean, yes, I suppose it's possible that the ship would actually float, but then it really wouldn't be any different from it being in the crash zone. So let's just say it sinks to the deep, dark depths and can no longer be reached using the equipment available in the game. So, to start with the first question, how would Ryley be affected? Well, initially, he wouldn't. Given that his life pod detaches before the Aurora hits the ground, he should still be relatively fine landing onto the planet and waking up from being temporarily unconscious. The next few hours of exploration might actually even be easier for him, given the fact that A, there would probably be no radiation from the Aurora, and B, it is possible that because of this, Reapers wouldn't even be present in the crash zone, since their attraction to sound might lead them to pursuing the ship into the void. Effectively speaking, Ryley would have a pretty good time up until the time came for him to retrieve the blueprint for his escape rocket, since that blueprint would most likely be resting somewhere thousands of meters below his prawn suit's crush depth limit, which effectively means that yes, if there is no other way for the blueprint to be sent to him, which I'm assuming there isn't, he would not be able to get off the planet. For all other aspects of survival, like building habitats or even curing Kara, he should be more or less fine, given that you can find pretty much all important blueprints scattered about without ever visiting the Aurora. Now, for how the lack of a reachable Aurora would affect the rest of the crew, we don't really have much to go off of here. Yes, it is possible that more would potentially survive, since we know of at least one life pod that tried to get to the Aurora and, well, presumably failed. Perhaps it not being available at all could make others more focused on finding a safe place to stay, such as the island, and trying to establish some sort of a base. Given that we know of several additional survivors who made it to the island already, I don't think that theory is too much of a stretch. Now, for perhaps the most interesting aspect, would Below Zero still happen? In my opinion, most likely, though it might take a bit longer. Let's talk this through. There are two core reasons why Below Zero can happen originally: Ryley curing the planet and making it back to Altera to presumably inform them about it. Now, in the Aurora-less parallel universe, Ryley should still be capable of curing Kara sooner or later, and even though he wouldn't be able to make it back to Altera, thinking about it logically, they just lost a brand new capital ship which was already on a supposedly quite important secret mission in around the same area as the Degassi. If that isn't enough reason to properly investigate, then I don't know what is. We do know that it takes around 13 months to get to 4546b from wherever the Aurora took off, so it might take them a while to get there, but eventually, I'm almost certain they would. Given the fact that Ryley would have probably still seen the effect of the quarantine enforcement platform on Sunbeam, he should reasonably be compelled to deactivate it, and thus, when another Alteran vessel came, they would probably be able to safely land and rescue him. Now yes, there are a few possible variables that could throw these theories for a loop. For one, you could say that maybe the only reason you can find the blueprints for everything outside the Aurora is that the explosion scattered them about. But given the fact that you can already find them in the world before the explosion, I don't think that's what the developers intended. Additionally, you could say that maybe, since the Aurora's position would be hard to detect if it were in the void, the sunbeam could arrive to a different part of the planet, meaning they would get destroyed without Ryley seeing them. But given the fact that he would have a ton of time on his hands, through exploration I think he would eventually disable the quarantine enforcement platform, even if he never realized it was actually a weapon. So there you have it guys, as crazy as it sounds, I don't think the Aurora landing in the void would actually change much. Ryley would probably still be able to survive, Below would probably still happen, although possibly later, and hey, some additional survivors would maybe still be alive, which would certainly make Ryley's time on the planet a lot more comfortable. But that brings us to the end of this video, so I hope you guys enjoyed taking it back a little bit with these speculations, and if you have any additional theories or things to add to what I just said here, please make sure to leave that down in the comments. I would very much like to read it. If you enjoyed this video, maybe consider liking and subscribing, both of those would be very much appreciated, and with that, I'm gonna see you all in whatever next video I make. Bye bye.